Hey, it's Catherine bringing you It's Not French Onion Soup. We're going to use several different kinds of onions, yellow onions, shallots, and also leeks to give it a really depth of flavor, of different flavors. And these are some frozen olive oil cubes with fresh herbs from my garden. I harvested them this summer. And they are so handy to just plop down in a pot and get going. So right here you're seeing a lot of my knife magic where I'm chopping everything up. Everything's getting chopped up, all of the onions, all of the shallots, all of the leeks. And they are sauteing in those olive oil cubes with the fresh herbs in it. And the herbs that are in the cubes are chives and thyme. These are some baguettes that I made a couple days ago, and so they are perfect to make croûtes out of because it's day-old bread, and those are the best things to use for croutons, croûtes. So here I'm just slicing them up, placing them on a baking tray, and I'm going to really sprinkle them well with some olive oil and oregano. And I'm going to make sure to cover both sides to make sure both sides are flavored. But making croûtes was perfect use of this 2-day-old bread. So I hate wasting stuff. I hate throwing anything out. And so I'm always looking for different ways to use them. And root vegetables keep really well. Onions keep really well. I have a pantry that's behind me. It doesn't have any heater air ducts in it, and it connects to the outside, and it is almost perfect for almost a mini root cellar. So I keep all of the root vegetables in there in a rolling cart. And it is so handy, but I have to remember not to leave the door open or it gets too warm in there. So this is extra virgin olive oil, and then I'm going to add the oregano in just a second and turn them over. Now, to control how much oregano you put on it, I like to shake it out in my hand and sprinkle it on. And if I use the shaker on the bottle, it doesn't come out fast enough. I can't get it where I want it. So I find it's easier, pour it out in your hand and then grab that up and sprinkle it exactly where you want it. And that way it doesn't get out of control. You don't get a big blob on there of herb. And these smelled so good cooking. They were wonderful. Those are going to go into a 425 oven for about 10 minutes or until they get lightly golden. And you want them to be crunchy so that they stand up in the soup. Now, even though this is not a French soup, I kind of styled it with the croûtes and the cheese, sort of like a French soup. But there are several things in here that are not classically French soup. So just remember to stir your onions every now and then, waiting for those to get caramelized. And here I'm adding some more oregano to the other side. And we'll just pop those into the oven and let those crisp up. Really put the timer on. I'm signaling you 425 degrees. Put the timer on because we're about to make a roux. And with the roux going and your onions going, it's easy to forget about those little croûtes in the oven, and you don't want to burn them. So I'm using 4 tablespoons of butter to 4 tablespoons of flour, and that's going to make up your roux. I was always scared of making roux until I really started practicing them and I got a little bit more comfortable with them. You really just got to babysit. It's basically 1 part butter or oil to 1 part flour. You put that on a little bit over medium because you want it warm enough to liquefy everything and cook it. And so you're just constantly stirring the roux until it gets to the desired cooked ratio that you want. Like if you're making Louisiana type food, you may want a dark roux for a gumbo or whatever, but for this style of roux, it's really going to be a lighter roux. Now here I've pulled some frozen chicken stock and frozen beef stock out of the freezer, and we're going to use that in our soup. And so what I did here was I just put those in the microwave to defrost, and when the roux came to the consistency I wanted, which I cooked it approximately about 2 to 3 minutes until the flour taste is gone. And then what I did was I just poured a little of the beef and chicken stock into the roux and stirred it until it got nice and creamy. And then I added the roux liquid to the pot of onions, and I went ahead and folded in the frozen stalks into the onions. The onions are already hot, and so it will melt the frozen stalks really easily. I'm going to deglaze the pan with a little dry vermouth and sort of get the caramelization of those onions up and get those flavors stirred around really well. Get them all combined. It's a lot of stirring in this video. You can see the roux is getting a little bit drier and cooking down, and you can start to see that the caramelization process is happening with some of my onions, which is perfect. Now I don't want to cook them too much because this is not French onion soup, don't forget. It is an onion soup, but I don't want the onions melted away. I do want the onion pieces in the soup. So this is a lot of kind of back and forth, but I'm holding the camera and trying to pour the vermouth and trying to stir at the same time. So sorry about the shakiness of the video, but when you're only one person with one camera, this is the best that it's going to get. So really combine all that vermouth in there. And I think this is kind of what gave the soup a really nice tangy flavor, is the vermouth. And certainly vermouth isn't, as far as I know, used in classic French onion soup. So now I'm going to stir my stock in with the roux and get it nice and creamy, and then I'll add that roux pot into the onion pot and combine everything. And if you can, use homemade stocks. They just are so much more flavorful than what you can ever get in a grocery store. And another thing is, I find that if you use prepackaged stock or maybe even bouillon, that the salt level just gets out of control. A lot of recipes don't take into consideration the fact that the salt is already in the broths or stocks. So I'm sort of increasing the temperature on the onions to melt the frozen stock the rest of the way. I could have let it all defrost in the microwave, but what I'm doing is conserving energy here because the burner is already going with the onions, and I'm just saving a little bit more, electricity by letting that one pot do the work for defrosting and cooking the onions. So I always put something on the hot burner that I just remove the pot from so that I don't forget and burn myself, which has happened before. So just stirring this around and allowing the stalks to melt. And part of the reason I let the stalks defrost in the microwave first is I needed a little bit of the stalks to reduce and combine with the roux. I always wash dishes as I go, and that really prevents them from all piling up and, cluttering the kitchen up while I'm trying to cook, or facing a huge pile of dishes after we get done. Croutes are out of the oven. They look awesome. They smelled so good. Gonna let them cool down on the counter over here while we finish the soup, because it has to cook. Oh my God, I forgot I forgot they were hot. Oh my Lord. Actually, I wanted to sneak one, but dang, got my fingers a little bit burnt there. What we've got to do now is bring the soup up to a boil, and then you're going to reduce it, put a lid on it, and let it cook for 60 minutes. This is the Comte cheese that I'm going to use later to top the croutes with. So we're just getting our soup up to temperature, and you can see it's boiling now. So it's time to add the lid and turn it down to low or simmer. And we're going to let that simmer for 60 minutes. I'm also going to add some fresh thyme from my garden. And this really, really set off the flavor in this soup. And I don't know, thyme just really goes well with Comte cheese, I think. I don't know what you think, but I like it. And I'm going to add quite a bit of thyme. That thyme oil is really good at this time of year to keep away viruses and colds. And that's a paramount importance right now. So the more thyme, the better. Just in my book. I'm adding some flaky Maldon salt. The taste of the Maldon is what I'm looking for here. There we go. Enough that time. Oh, here. We're going to take a break. So, 1 cube of ice, ounce of bourbon, and 60 minutes or so later, we'll see you then. 60 minutes. And with the magic of video, here we are 60 minutes later. And I'm going to give it a stir, cut up my Comte cheese, and get it ready. It's been setting out at room temperature to help with the cutting of it. Warmer cheeses cut a little bit easier than a hard cold cheese. I'm also going to take up the croutes and put those in a plastic bag because I need the tray to put the bowls on when I ladle the soup into the bowls and place the croutes on them. Now, a lot of videos show using Swiss cheese on soups like this, and certainly that's an option if you like Swiss better. We just happen to have Comte and not Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese would be great. Other melted cheeses would be good as well. You could use mozzarella. Any nice meltable cheese Gruyere would be great to use here too. And in a pinch, you could use Parmesan. You'd have to shave it, I think. Shave the Parmesan. Now look how creamy and velvety the soup is, and that's from that roux that we added to it earlier. Here I'm just getting ready to take up the croûtes. And I'm going to give this a taste and see if we need any extra salt or cracked pepper, which I think it was okay. I don't think I added anything else. It was really good. So I turned it off because it's ready. It's ready to go under the broiler and have the cheese put on it. So we're going to take up the croûtes now. Because I've got to get that tray under these bowls. Sorry for the clearing in my throat. Allergy season for me. Dust, mold, all that stuff that's in those leaves outside. Now, here we go. We're gonna start ladling our soup into the bowls, place the croûtes in, and then place the Comte cheese on top. Again, I'm gonna be doing all of this one-handed because I'm gonna change the view here in just a second. I want you to be able to see the croûtes in the bowl a little bit better. Trying to do a little bit better with the trajectory of my camera view. By the way, this is all videoed on my phone and it's all edited on my phone, so you know, we just do the best we can, don't we? I don't have any fancy camera or microphone. I think the most important thing is just to get you the recipe and kind of show you how to do it so that you can try this at home. And, you know, it's not a classical French soup, but, you know, honestly, I think I like this style of soup better than the classic French onion. The roux makes it really creamy. The vermouth gives it a little bit of a tang. And you can see that I'm having to do this all one-handed. So you're going to kind of see the camera shake here in a minute. So I was trying to get my cheese in the other hand, and here we go. Here we go. I'm trying to do it all. I did not get all the croûtes covered with the cheese. And so a couple of edges of the croûtes got a little bit too brown, so kind of be aware of that. You may want to really try and get all of the edges covered, and that way, you know, your croûtes won't get too brown like mine did. But it was just the tiny edge of it. It really wasn't that much. So you're going to broil that on high in your oven until your Comte cheese melts. And here they're coming out of the oven. Oh my goodness, they look delicious. And you see how hot that is. It is bubbling. Burning hot. Now I had decanted the rest of the soup over to the left in some containers for David to taste of. And so let's call him into the kitchen, shall we? I got the cheese just a tiny bit.
No.
Too done.
I'll taste it from the container.
Okay.
I don't want to mess up my pretty bowl.
Taste it from the, because that's piping hot.
Yeah. This is probably a little bit cooler. That's nice. Doesn't taste like regular French onion soup.
Which I didn't want it to.
Right.
I wanted it to be different.
It is.
And you have a little tang with the vermouth, I think.
I was trying to.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of a tang.
I was gonna say herby. I knew you put thyme in it, but there was something. It's not just thyme. Like it's got that nice sweetness from the onion. And herby. Herbaceous.
Let's get to our real soup then, because it has cheese and fruits on it.
Let's do it.